From Axios, Trump administration to deport Abrego Garcia again. All right, we call this Deportation Act 2. The Trump administration said it would send Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, to an unnamed third country as part of its renewed effort to deport him. I hope it's South Sudan. Multiple outlets reported on Thursday. The Trump administration has included deportations to non-origin countries in its immigration policy with permission from the Supreme Court. Abrego Garcia was returned to the U.S. earlier this month. The DOJ was ordered to release him from prison in Tennessee while he awaited trial. U.S. District Judge Waverly Crenshaw said on Wednesday that Abrego Garcia is likely to eventually be deported to El Salvador, where he's originally from. Let me just put it this way. We live in, how do I describe this? The absurdity of having to go through this circuitous, bureaucratic deportation process back and forth to America, back to El Salvador, to America, released from prison, charged with human trafficking, is psychotic. Why can't human beings just go, guys, we're just going to deport him and just cut through the whole thing? Where did we end up? They said, you can't deport him. He's got a withholding of deportation. Okay, but if he came back and got a hearing, he'd be deported. No, bring him back anyway. Okay, I guess we bring him back, and then he gets ordered to be deported again. What was the point of any of it? Why are we doing this?
Because we love bureaucracy.
Because the left doesn't want us to deport anybody.
Well, no, they're like, you're separating him from his family.
Because
And, they should just all leave at once.
I mean, well, look, the fact of the matter is the left has taken the side of every single criminal that the Trump administration has tried to deport. Like, regardless of your opinion on legal immigration or whether we should, or dreamers or whatever, the left and Democrats have decided that they're going to treat every single actual criminal that the Trump administration wants to deport as if they are wrongly accused. And then as time passes, it just comes out that, no, they're not wrongly accused. They're actually criminals. And it just hardens the American people against the Democrats. So, in my opinion, more power to them.
They aren't even genuinely ignorant to the facts. I think they know.
Who?
The left. I think they know that someone like Abrego Garcia is guilty of what he's been accused of, and they actually don't care. They're going to lie and say that they're ignorant and that we don't know, we haven't looked into it. But they actually believe that people who were born in this country deserve to be brutalized by foreigners. They actually believe that we deserve that.
In practice,
and that's
at least.
Justice.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they lie and say he's innocent. Mm-hmm. They know that he's not.
There's a way to find out if he's guilty, though, which is basic I mean, that's why we have due process. That's why due process exists.
Well, he got his due process. He got deported.
Well, he has not been deported yet.
No, he was deported at first. That was
a violation of due process because he didn't get it.
No.
It was. So there's two issues at play. The Alien Enemies Act, for which Stephen Miller argued that was superseding the withholding of deportation. But the order that he had under immigration law was that he was not to be deported back to El Salvador due to fear from
to that country specifically.
But it was over Guatemala. Barrios 18 in Guatemala. So he was ordered to leave, and he just didn't. So when the Alien Enemies Act thing kicked in, the White House made the argument that they had the authority to do it. The due process at that point was a legal challenge to the Alien Enemies Act, but that was separate from Abrego Garcia. So the action would be he gets deported under the original deportation order, and on top of it, then they would challenge the Alien Enemies Act, which I think they said, okay, got to bring him back now. But he'll just get deported if we do.
He will get deported again, but I do think there is something to be said for following the law. I mean, I am a believer in the rule of law, and I don't think you can apply it selectively. They did violate the law by, I guess they call it an administrative error. I don't want to assume malice. Perhaps
they
it
changed
was just
their position.
Right. I mean, who knows what it was.
At first, I think the DHS said it was administrative error because basically what happened was he had this withholding of deportation, it's called. And then when they basically went through all the... So people got to understand how bureaucracy is broken. And what happens is an immigration court says withholding of deportation. At the same time, he already had an order of removal. They both existed at the exact same time. So he was supposed to leave, but we couldn't deport him to El Salvador. So when the DHS starts going through, let's go through the backlog of deportation orders, he gets grabbed in that same as everybody else. Then they go, we didn't realize there was this other order.
Right.
So it was an administrative error. However, Stephen Miller came out and said, no, we issued these deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, and that supersedes any kind of other order. You would need an order on top of that. So then the argument became the Alien Enemies Act challenged in the court, to which the Supreme Court said, no, you've got to bring them back. However, no one knew what they meant by facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, in which case they brought him back as what people wanted, and now he's immediately being sent back because we're all morons and we wasted our time for no reason.
But I would argue that the Trump administration has made a strategic blunder by sticking to cases like this, because a lot of people wanted him in office because of immigration specifically. And I think by committing to these cases that, I mean, I know that you disagree with it resonating with a lot of people, but the fact of the matter is it does, and his immigration approval rating has declined. And if polling on this specific case,
he's not deporting enough.
Yeah.
That's why
it's
mass deportations
when polled
are popular.
on the Abrego Garcia case specifically, a lot of the majority of people said, or the larger group said they disapproved of the way he handled it. And I actually think, I'm not exactly, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but more people disagreed than agreed. And I think that it is, like I said, it's a strategic error to have really committed to this. And, they spent months saying, well, we can't bring him back. They always could bring him back. And I think they should have just said, oops, we made a mistake. We'll bring him back. And
I think the intention actually was, let's let Democrats defend a human trafficker for as long as possible and then bring him back.
Well, we don't know if he was.
That strategy
he's not accused
worked.
of human trafficking. He's accused of
was in Maryland.
smuggling.
Yeah, he is.
He's accused of smuggling, not trafficking.
What's
Criminal indictment.
So you're making a semantic argument.
What is
Well, no,
human
because
smuggling?
trafficking is like against someone's will. Smuggling is like you help them get across the border.
If we're speaking colloquially, trafficking is
I'm speaking under the law.
Right. So I'm speaking colloquially.
Right.
We call him a trafficker. He's trafficking in human lives.
That's not the criminal definition of trafficking.
Well, either way, the
Just-
incentive
it's-
to not handle it the way that you suggested is clear. It's to allow the left to defend this man who is obviously a gang member and a criminal.
Well, and I think
that worked.
obsessing over Maryland man. A lot of people said Maryland man
But,
over and over and over.
let's not
again.
just focus on the violent criminals. Let's just get illegal workers out of here.
Yeah.
That's what people want, and it wouldn't gain any new.
I don't know
news
that everyone
attention.
wants
it
that.
wouldn't be in the news cycle, and yeah, it is popular. Mass deportations are popular.
So why is Trump?
That was a popular mandate.
Didn't Trump just back out of ICE going into slaughterhouses?
Okay.
is he-
I don't know.
is-
Some people
Fox
thought
News
that he
says
was
human
sticking by
trafficking
that
charges.
statement. Others thought that it was a throwaway comment.
Yeah, that's.
that
I
was
mean,
out of
I read the
context.
indictment. It's.
But either way, regardless of what Trump thinks, I'm talking about what he campaigned on and what people voted for him to do.
It's a distinction that I
he's
think a lot of
following
people don't
through.
realize.
If anything, the approval rating on immigration is going down because he's not committing to what he promised. In terms of the actual numbers
I'm
of
sure there are some
deportations.
people who want to see
Meaning
more
interior.
deportations. I don't disagree that those people exist, but I
Maybe
also
even more people than the number that voted for him.
I think the challenge is, I think the difference in ideology is like over the span of 30 years, when you bring in, let me try it like this. If I own a house and I invite a guy to come live there, and so I have roommates, but like the house has been in my family for generations, and then we decide, hey, like another guy wants to come and sleep on the couch, let's vote on it. And I say, well, look, this is my historic family home. I don't want people here. And he goes, well, I voted 50-50. So willing to tiebreaker. It's like, well, hold on. I would argue that the people you're referring to, American citizens, maybe even first generation, they're going to have sympathies towards illegal immigration, specifically because they're more likely to have family members who are legal
So actually,
immigrants.
there's interesting data on this. A lot of legal immigrants are extremely against illegal immigration because they feel like they didn't feel like it. They say they came here the right way. So a lot of people feel the exact opposite. They feel
Except when Reagan granted amnesty, and then California permanently became a Democrat state. Because what happened was I think it was 2.9 million illegal immigrants, and they were here illegally, were granted amnesty, and then that was in the 80s, of course. In the 90s, when they put forward a proposition that would take away public funds from illegal immigrants, the people who were granted amnesty had family members that were here illegally and getting public resources. So they all said, we can't allow that to happen. And from that point on, California has never voted Republican since.
I mean, it is interesting to think back on the fact that not long ago California was like a deep red state.
Yes, and then they brought in 3 million illegal immigrants, gave them amnesty, and now it's a permanent Democrat.
I think that's too simplistic. I think there are more reasons for why it has. I don't think every blue voter in California is a descendant of an immigrant per se.
No, I mean the funny thing too is one thing I really love about this debate is the white nationalists, because I think, sorry guys, they're just like the dumbest group. Because they keep saying things like one stat that I saw going viral was that today, let me ask you guys, do you know what percentage of New York City is white?
I think it's like 30, 40%, something like that now.
What do you say?
40.
What do you think?
30 or 40, I'm not sure
What
exactly.
do you think?
That's white?
Yeah, the white population of New York.
40%?
29.
Including the Irish.
29%. And
Does anyone have a majority? No one has a majority then, right? It's just a bunch of different...
I think the white would still be the ethnic majority.
Okay.
Hispanic maybe at this point, or like Latino or whatever. But it's funny because I see these like white people sharing this, and I'm like, dude, it's white people that are for the immigration. Like, what are you talking about? There's no, like, the white nationalists are like, oh, it's, non-white city, and I'm like, and it was white people that enacted those policies.
The wishes of stupid white liberals need not be honored.
Doesn't matter. They're white people. So when white nationalists make this claim that, like, if it was more white, it'd be better, I'm like, what are you talking about? All the white countries in Europe are the ones that are opening the door to immigration.
Well,
so, like, blame
white
yourself.
progressives were the ones who voted for Mamdani. I mean, like, if you look at the actual breakdown of the neighborhoods, really heavy black and brown neighborhoods went for Cuomo.
That's why it's not about immigration, it's about feminism.
I just think it's funny that the people who are racist are like,
True.
like, I'll just put it this way. The data that we have suggests that if you get if a country is comprised of white people over a long enough time, they eventually enact laws that open up their borders and allow other people to come into their countries. We're seeing it all across Europe and the United States and Canada. And so I'm just like, why do these people believe that white people would inherently make a better country when these countries were all majority white and have created what they perceive as a problem already? Like, the chain of events is there before them. America was a majority white nation. They have a problem with what America became, but it was a white majority nation that enacted the policies that created the country they don't like. I don't understand their logic.
Well,
there you go, I guess.
I mean, I think it's more complicated than just right. I mean, I will say something I shared today that I mentioned a little bit ago. I don't actually think that Mamdani is going to turn New York City into Cuba. I really don't. I mean, he couldn't do it even if he wanted to. But I do think there's something ironic about a strong commitment to socialist policies, and then when you see the video I was describing was a Cuban going into a grocery store and becoming a Costco and becoming very moved because of like the abundance that he had just never seen before, so overwhelmed by it, gets teary-eyed and all that. So someone who's come from an actual, socialist, I guess someone would say communist, not great place. He's someone who goes into a capitalist utopia and is just so moved by it because it's so powerful. And I think capitalism is kind of a miracle in that way. I mean, this is probably the corniest thing about me, but I think like malls and grocery stores they're modern miracles. The idea that and we're living in a time when you can go to a one-stop shop and have everything you want. I think the reason I shared it isn't because I think Mamdani is going to turn New York City into Cuba. I shared it because there is a puzzling hatred of capitalism on the left, and I don't really get it because, I mean, it produces so many wonderful things. Obviously, inequality exists, but there is inequality in every system, and I don't want to be in a breadline.
Well, I mean, so first of all, as for why the people on the left believe capitalism is so bad is because they don't acknowledge, or it hasn't, occurred to them that life prior to markets and capitalism was just exceedingly short, brutal, hard, and it was cold, and it was it was miserable.
Totally.
And they always compare their current situation, personal situation, to whatever they can imagine a perfect society would be. So they're like, oh, I'm having a hard time paying my rent. If we had socialism, then I wouldn't have to worry about rent. Oh, I'm having a hard time buying food. If we had socialism, if we had public grocery stores, then I wouldn't have to worry about it. It would be taken care of. So it's a rejection of their own reality, and they're comparing their reality to a perfect society, which absolutely could never exist. So that's why they're like that.
But I do think Mamdani will turn New York into Cuba. I mean, look at Brandon Johnson.
No, it'll be Mamdani's successor. It wasn't Chavez. It was Maduro. It wasn't Lenin. It was Stalin.
Literally, what we're saying, like, obviously, New York will largely stay New York over the next several years. But look at what Chicago has already been dealing with, and Brandon Johnson's got an approval rating which is like 1% or something.
It's bad.
It's real bad, and we're gonna get the exact same thing in New York.
Well, but I think saying that Mamdani is going to turn it into literally Cuba kind of like
it's a joke.
The
it's hyperbole.
horror of living in Cuba. I mean, where literally you can't get medicine or gas or food. I'm not a fan of communism, not a fan of socialism, but I don't think New York City is literally going to be having breadlines.
Right, it's just hyperbole.
Sure. I will say that I know people say Twitter, X, whatever. It's bad for society overall. Maybe that's true. But it has given me a unique window into, I guess, a thought processes that I wouldn't otherwise have. And when I posted this video, hundreds of people responded that the only reason that Cuba is suffering is because of the U.S. embargo on trade.
As if the U.S. is the only effing country on the planet. Like the other 100 and whatever 90 countries on Earth are not embargoing Cuba. It's insanely stupid.
Stunning to me
it's
that
so
people
stupid.
Still believe that. I mean, I don't support the embargo. I'm a fan of trade, and I think that the embargo hurts people who people that it's not meant to hurt, like just everyday Cubans. But the idea that that's why Cubans are suffering is insane. They're suffering because they have a Soviet-style government where your dissent is criminalized, and there's the totally central planned economy. Read a history book. I don't understand how we keep doing this.
No, because they don't read history books.
They don't believe the history books. They just say, oh, it's capitalist propaganda. Of course it's insane.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.